It was one of those sticky late September evenings when the city never quite cools down, no matter how late it gets. The kind of night where the air feels like it's clinging to your skin, pressing in like someone's watching you, closely, quietly, just out of frame. Our apartment sat on the third floor of an aging brownstone, all crooked door frames and creaky pipes. Most people would call it charming. I called it barely holding together, but it was ours, mine and Jesse's. Jesse was my roommate. And also, God, how do I even begin? Jesse was Jesse. Funny without trying, infuriating without meaning to be, and beautiful in that sharp, arrogant way that made you hate yourself for noticing. We'd been living together for almost 8 months, long enough to stop being polite and start being weird. That night, I was in the bathroom, half naked, sweating in the humidity that our broken fan couldn't fight off. I'd just gotten back from a night run, one of those impulsive things I did to keep my head clear, but it hadn't worked. It never really did anymore. The mirror was fogged from the hot water I just turned on. I stood there, staring into the clouded glass, wiping it slowly with the back of my hand, trying not to look at myself too closely. I hated how jumpy I looked. My eyes darted around too fast, my lips were too tight, and my neck red, like I'd been scratching it again without noticing. Behind me, the door creaked. It was just a sound, a small one, but it sliced through the silence like a scream. Jesse, I called out, voice barely steady. No answer. I stepped closer to the door, barefoot on cold tiles. The hallway outside was dark. I had definitely closed the bathroom door when I came in, hadn't I? I looked down. The door was ajar. A few inches. Enough for someone to see in. My stomach dropped. Seriously, Jesse? I asked again, louder this time. Still no response. Only the faint buzz of the hallway light. I stepped toward the door, opened it a bit more, and peered out. Empty. I frowned, confused, the tightness in my chest nodding into something more complicated than fear. Shame, maybe. Anticipation. Guilt. I didn't know. Then something caught my eye, a flash of movement in the corner of the living room. A shadow slipping out of sight. For a second, I just stood there, wrapped in a damp towel, breathing shallowly. Why hadn't he answered? And why did I feel like I had just been caught doing something wrong? Jesse never knocked. That was part of the problem. But this time, it felt different. Like he had come in on purpose. Like he wanted something. Or knew something. I stood there, staring at the crack of the bathroom door, too afraid to close it. Too afraid to open it. And then I remembered. The door had definitely been locked. Hadn't it? I stayed in the bathroom longer than I needed to. The mirror had cleared, but I kept wiping at it, like I was trying to rub away my own reflection. It was the kind of silence that makes you think too loud. Every heartbeat felt like a knock. Eventually, I stepped out. The towel slipped a little, and I tightened it reflexively. The hallway stretched ahead of me, dimly lit by the cracked frosted glass fixture above. Jesse's bedroom door was closed. I told myself it was nothing, but I still didn't exhale. I made my way to my room and shut the door, gently. The AC unit in my window hummed like a lullaby, but the chill in the air didn't touch the tension in my spine. I dropped the towel and changed into a loose tank top and shorts. Everything felt too warm, too tight. I could still feel eyes on my back. I didn't see Jesse until the next morning. He was in the kitchen, shirtless, making coffee the way he always did, grinding the beans by hand like some hipster monk and humming some indie song off-key. He didn't look up when I walked in. Morning, he said, casual. Too casual. I studied his back. The soft trail of muscle between his shoulder blades, his boxers peeking out from his pajama pants. He looked like he hadn't slept. His hair was messy, eyes a bit puffy. But he wouldn't meet mine. You came home late, I said. Yeah, stayed at Jordan's for a bit. He poured coffee into 2 mugs, then slid one toward me without asking. You good? I stared at the mug. Something about the way he asked that made my stomach twist. Like he knew something. Why wouldn't I be? He finally looked up. No reason. But there was a reason, and we both knew it. He paused like he wanted to say something else, then shrugged it off and turned back to the fridge. We never talked about the bathroom door. Instead, we fell into our usual rhythm. cooking dinner in companionable silence, passing each other in the hallway, watching stupid late-night movies on the couch with a full cushion of space between us. Except now, it all felt like performance. A week passed, then another, and then something changed. It was Thursday night when I came back from class and found Jesse already home, which was unusual. He usually worked late shifts at the bar. But there he was, lying on the couch in the dark, the flickering blue light of the TV barely lighting the room. "Hey," I said cautiously, kicking off my shoes. He didn't answer. He was awake. I could see his eyes open. "Jesse." Still nothing. Just this low, rhythmic breathing, not quite even enough to be sleep. I stepped closer. That's when I noticed he was gripping something tightly in one hand. His phone. I crouched beside the couch, careful not to touch him. "You okay?" Finally, he spoke, voice rough and low. Have you ever wanted to tell someone something, but you knew if you said it out loud, everything would change? My heart started thudding. I swallowed. "Yeah," I whispered. He didn't say anything for a long time, just stared ahead, like if he moved, the truth might escape. Then, without looking at me, he said, "You talk in your sleep." I froze. "What?" "Last night, around 3, you were saying something, over and over." "What did I say?" He turned then, his eyes finally locking onto mine. "You said my name." A thick silence fell between us. I opened my mouth to deny it. Of course I didn't. He must have misheard. He was dreaming. But nothing came out. Because I had. I remembered the dream. I remembered the heat, the touch, the breathless pleas before I woke up tangled in sheets soaked with sweat. "Must have been dreaming," I muttered, standing too fast. My legs felt weak. "Weird." "Yeah," he said quietly. "Weird." I walked to my room and closed the door harder than I meant to. I leaned against it, heart hammering. He knew, or at least suspected, and I couldn't stop wondering, what would he do with that? That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, lit faintly by the glow from a street lamp outside my window. I thought of every moment that felt too close in hindsight, the lingering glances, the accidental brushes of skin, the way he once offered to rub my back when I complained about soreness, and how his hands had hovered just a second too long before making contact. Had I imagined it all? Or had he? Around 2 a.m., I gave up and got up. I padded down the hallway in boxers and a hoodie, needing water, needing clarity, anything. The living room was dark again, but the bathroom door was slightly open. I stopped. The light was off. The air was heavy. I could feel something charged, like static before a storm. I should have gone back to bed. Instead, I pushed the door open. He was there. Jesse, sitting on the edge of the tub, fully clothed, staring at the floor like it had answers. His elbows on his knees, phone dangling loosely from one hand. He didn't look up. "I thought you were asleep," I said, voice barely above a whisper. "Couldn't," he murmured. I leaned against the doorframe. "Me neither." We sat in silence for a moment, separated by nothing but shadows. Then he said it. "I came into the bathroom that night. My breath hitched. I knew it," I whispered before I could stop myself. He looked up at me, finally, eyes raw. "The door wasn't locked. You left it cracked open." "No, I didn't." We stared at each other, and just like that, the air between us broke open. "You watch me?" I asked, a shiver running through my spine, not from cold, but from something darker, meatier. He nodded once. I couldn't stop myself. Jesse didn't look away when he said it. I couldn't stop myself. The words landed between us like a crack in glass, thin at first, almost invisible, then widening, spreading. I swallowed, but my throat was dry. "Why didn't you say anything?" He stood slowly, towering slightly over me in the doorway. We were barely a foot apart now, close enough to feel each other's breath, close enough that if one of us leaned forward, even slightly, something irreversible would happen. "I didn't know how," he said. My voice came out smaller than I intended. "And now?" He looked away, biting the inside of his cheek, like he was punishing himself for even being here. Now, I'm still trying to figure out whether this is a confession or a mistake. I didn't know what to say. My heart was punching through my ribs. My body moved before my mind caught up. I stepped back, just a little, barely noticeable. But he noticed. "I made you uncomfortable," he said flatly. "No," I started, but the word caught in my mouth. "I don't know. Maybe. Not because of that, but because I'm not sure what this is." He gave a dry laugh, no humor in it. "Yeah, welcome to my world." I turned to leave, hand already on the doorknob. I needed to breathe, to think, to not be in this small, dark room that suddenly felt like it was closing in. But then his hand touched my wrist. It wasn't forceful, barely a grip at all, just skin on skin, warm, familiar. I froze. "Don't go yet," he said quietly. I looked at his hand, then at him. "Why?" "Because if you walk out right now, I'll never say it." My voice trembled. "Say what?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward, only half a step, but it felt like a mile. My back hit the door with a soft thump. The room was suddenly too small, too quiet. His gaze fell to my lips, then back to my eyes. I knew what was coming, or I thought I did. But then he said it. "You're not the only one who dreams." My breath hitched. He leaned in, not touching, just close. Torturously close. "I've seen you," he whispered. "The way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. The way your voice changes when you say my name. You're not just my roommate, and we both know it." I wanted to deny it, but I couldn't, because part of me wanted this, craved it, and another part was terrified of it. What if we're wrong? I said, voice barely audible. What if this ruins everything? Jesse exhaled shakily. Then maybe it needs to be ruined. That broke something in me. I surged forward, kissing him before I could stop myself. It wasn't soft. It wasn't romantic. It was raw, starved, like we'd both been holding our breath for months and finally exhaled into each other. His hands found my waist. Mine gripped the fabric of his shirt like I was afraid he'd disappear. He walked us backward into the bathroom. I didn't even realize we were moving until I felt the cold sink press into the small of my back. He broke the kiss first, forehead pressed against mine. "We should stop," he murmured, breathless. I nodded. "We should." But neither of us moved. My hand slid under his shirt. His jaw clenched, eyes fluttering shut. Then something shifted. His phone, forgotten in his back pocket, buzzed violently. We both paused. He stepped back and pulled it out, glancing at the screen. His expression changed, instantly guarded, guilty. I didn't have to ask. I already knew. "Jordan," I said, tone sharp. He didn't answer. I took a step back, heart plummeting. "Are you still seeing him?" "It's complicated," he muttered. My stomach twisted. "That's not an answer." "I didn't plan for this to happen," he said, tone suddenly defensive. "You think I wanted this? That I wanted to fall for you while I was still tangled up in something else?" My voice cracked. "You should have told me." He threw his hands up, frustrated. "I didn't know how. I'm not good at this, okay? I don't do feelings well. I don't even know what I'm allowed to want anymore." The heat in my chest turned to something colder. "So, what was this? A mistake? A moment of weakness?" "No," he said instantly. "God, no." "But—" I shook my head. "But it still doesn't mean anything." Silence. He looked like he wanted to argue, to reach for me again. But he didn't. Instead, he walked past me out of the bathroom. I heard the front door open, then close, and just like that, he was gone. I stood there in the silence he left behind. The mirror, fogged again from our breath, showed only a ghost. My fingers were still tingling where they had touched him. My lips still remembered his taste. But my heart had no idea what came next. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I lay on my side, staring at the shadowy ceiling, feeling the emptiness beside me like a wound. The apartment felt different, like it had shifted on its axis, like some hidden line had been crossed, and now we were on the other side of something unnamed. I heard Jesse come back around 4 a.m. quietly. No door slamming, no footsteps heavy with drama. Just the soft creak of the front door, the familiar rhythm of him taking his shoes off, and then nothing. I wanted to go to him, to say something, anything. But what would I even say? "Did you go to Jordan's? Do you regret it?" Was I just the middle ground between what you wanted and what you knew you shouldn't want? I rolled over and pulled the blanket tighter, even though I was already sweating. We didn't speak the next day, or the next. We moved around each other like strangers, sharing a secret neither of us had the courage to name. The tension wasn't loud, it was quiet, careful, like we were both pretending not to remember the way our bodies had collided in that tiny bathroom, the way our breaths had synced, the way he had touched me like he already knew how I wanted to be touched. He made coffee like always, but didn't hand me a cup. I cleaned the bathroom, scrubbed every inch, not because it was dirty, but because the memory of him standing there, kissing me like he needed it to survive, had somehow soaked into the tile. That Saturday, I heard him talking on the phone. His door was cracked open, just slightly, just enough. I wasn't eavesdropping. Not at first, but I heard my name. No, I haven't told him, Jesse said, voice low, tense. A pause. Then, because I don't even know what it was, okay? It happened. I let it happen. And now I'm just trying to figure out what the hell to do with it. The sound of him pacing, his bare feet on the old wood floor. I can't keep lying to both of them. I backed away from his door before I heard more. Both of them. That echoed in my chest all night. I sat on the fire escape, a blanket wrapped around me, watching the city blink tiredly in the dark. Below, a man argued with someone over the phone. A dog barked twice and stopped. A siren moaned faintly in the distance. It all felt too far away, too normal. Behind me, I heard the window slide open, then close again. Jesse didn't say anything as he sat beside me. He just pulled his own hoodie tighter and looked straight ahead. Minutes passed. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said eventually. I know, I replied. That's what makes it worse. He nodded once as if he agreed. I looked at him, at the slope of his shoulders, the way his hair curled behind his ear, the bruise-like tiredness beneath his eyes. I wanted to reach out, to touch him again, to ask him if what we had was real or just a moment born out of loneliness and crossed wires. But I didn't, because I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. I don't know what I'm doing, he admitted, voice almost inaudible. With you, with him, with myself. I waited, hoping there was more. A resolution, a decision, but nothing came. Just silence. He turned to look at me then, eyes glassy with something that wasn't quite regret, but wasn't hope either. I think about that night, he said softly, all the time. I swallowed hard. So do I. And that was it. That was all either of us could give. We sat out there until the sun began to rise behind the brick buildings, casting pale orange light across the rooftops. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke again. We just sat in the space between guilt and longing, both knowing we were already too far from where we started, and maybe too afraid to figure out where we'd end. 3 weeks passed. We didn't talk about the kiss. We didn't talk about Jordan. We didn't talk about anything that mattered. Jesse and I became two people orbiting the same apartment, always just far enough apart not to collide, but close enough to feel the gravitational pull. Mornings were the worst. He'd brush past me in the kitchen like nothing ever happened. Offer me a polite, tired hey, like we hadn't stood chest to chest in a steamy bathroom, whispering things we still weren't ready to say in daylight. But I saw it in the small things. The way he lingered in the hallway when I walked by, the way his fingers twitched when our hands almost touched over the couch, the way he looked at me sometimes like he was trying to memorize me and forget me at the same time. I told myself it was just a phase, that we could move past it, go back to being friends, roommates, whatever we were before that night swallowed us whole. But then I found the note. It was tucked inside the laundry basket, folded, crumpled like it had been written fast and shoved there in a moment of hesitation. No name, just my handwriting on the outside. Don't hate me. My stomach turned cold. I opened it, half expecting a confession, a goodbye, something final. But it wasn't from Jesse. It was from Jordan. I know you probably hate me. Maybe you should, but you need to know the truth. He didn't just make a mistake. He made a choice, and he's still making it. I thought we could pretend this wasn't real, that he'd come clean, But he's been lying to both of us. He told me he loved me. The same week he kissed you. My hands trembled. I stared at the words, trying to find some version of events that made them untrue. But it fit too well. The timing, the silence, the way Jesse kept avoiding the hard conversations, the way he looked at me like he wanted to be saved, but couldn't ask for it. I didn't even realize Jesse had come home until I heard the door click shut. I turned slowly. He stood in the hallway, keys still in hand, gaze falling to the paper in mine. He knew. You found it, he said flatly. You knew it was there? He nodded once. I put it back after I read it. My throat tightened. Why? He hesitated. Because I didn't want to lie anymore. But I wasn't ready to tell you the truth either. I stared at him. So, what is the truth, Jesse? He looked me in the eye, and for the first time in weeks, he didn't look away. I don't know what I feel anymore. That's not good enough, I whispered. I know. Silence stretched between us again, and then he asked, so quietly, I almost missed it. Would it be easier if I left? I didn't answer. I couldn't, because part of me wanted to scream yes, to burn it all down before it hurt any more than it already had. But another part, some desperate broken thing inside me, wanted to grab him and say, stay. Lie to me if you have to. Just don't leave. The words never came. He turned away, and I watched him walk back into his room, close the door behind him. No slam, no goodbye, just a silence loud enough to crush me. And I stood there, holding Jordan's letter in one hand and my heart in the other, wondering what was worse, the lies Jesse told me or the ones I told myself. I always thought the strangest part of that day was how normal it started. It was raining, just barely a soft hiss against the kitchen window, like the world was whispering a secret it didn't want to hear. The city looked blurry and gray, like someone had turned down the saturation on everything. It made the apartment feel more like a bunker than a home, dim, quiet, tucked away from anything real. I was nursing a cup of instant coffee I didn't even want, listening to the creak of the floorboards above me and the faint hum of our fridge struggling to stay alive. Jesse hadn't come home the night before. I wasn't his keeper. We weren't dating. We weren't even whatever people thought we were. We were roommates. Friends, maybe. Occasionally drunk confidants when the walls between us got too thin. But still, I noticed he always texted, always said something, even if it was vague. Out late, don't wait up. That sort of thing. But this time, nothing. The silence gnawed at me more than I wanted to admit. I kept replaying our last conversation from a night before. Something about dishes. Something about how I always left the sponge in the wrong place. But there was something else there too. Something heavy that hung between us even when we weren't speaking. A strange kind of static. A shift I couldn't name. Maybe I imagined it. Or maybe that was the moment everything started to tilt. Around 10 a.m., I went to shower. The bathroom was small, old white tile, steam-stained mirror, the kind of place that always smelled vaguely like soap and mildew no matter how much you cleaned it. I closed the door, out of habit. Not all the way. It didn't lock properly anyway. Jesse and I had a silent agreement. Knock first. Always knock. It was a boundary we never talked about, but always respected. Until that day, I was rinsing the shampoo from my hair when I heard the door creak. At first, I thought it was just the building settling. Our place did that sometimes, groaned like it hated being old. But then I felt it, a shift in the air. Someone was in the room. My heart jolted, and I turned, wiping water from my eyes. And there he was, Jesse, just standing there. His hoodie was damp from the rain. His hair stuck to his forehead. He didn't look surprised to see me. Didn't apologize. He didn't move. He just stared, like he'd walked in on something he didn't expect, but couldn't stop looking at. And I didn't say anything. Didn't cover myself. Didn't shout. I just stood there, frozen in the cascade of hot water, waiting for him to say something, waiting for myself to breathe. His eyes moved over me, slowly, like he was taking inventory, like he was seeing something he'd spent too long trying not to look at. And then he said my name, soft, like a prayer, or a warning. open my mouth to respond, but I never got the chance. Because what he did next changed everything.